friends and welcome to Obsidian Soft. In my previous tutorials on Google Sheets, I showed you how to easily write to a Google Sheet using forms and also read the entire sheet into the MIT App Inventor app. This was a simple and easy approach that came with some limitations. We couldn't update any row or delete any row in our sheet through our app. And we also couldn't differentiate between different sheets in our spreadsheet. In this tutorial, we will not just create rows in our Google Sheet, but also delete or update a particular row through our MIT App Inventor app. We will also use sheet names so that if our spreadsheet has multiple sheets, we can do our operations on a particular sheet. So let's begin. First of all, go to Google Sheets and make a new spreadsheet. Let's give it a name, data for MIT app, and I am going to rename my sheet to customers, okay, and I'm also going to give some column titles in the first row, ID, name, and city, and I'm going to give some sample data to it, for example, Harry, and then city can be London. Okay. Now look at this address bar, and we need it later, this part between the two slashes. This is your spreadsheet ID, and we will be needing it to code our web app script. Okay. So keep this in mind. Now click on extensions and click on app script. And let's rename it, the project, MIT App Inventor Web App. Okay. And there's already some code in it, but we have to put in our own code. And I've already done the code for you. I will give you the Google Drive link for it, and you can use the code from there. Okay. So I'm going to open up my code and select it. Make sure that you start from function doGet, and then you go down till the last curly bracket. Control C, come back, remove this part, Control V. Okay. And now you have to provide the spreadsheet ID. So if I go back to my spreadsheet and I copy this part, okay, come back to your script, and you have to update it at two parts, the function doGet and the function doPost. Make sure that you don't accidentally remove the double quotes. So this is done, and this assumes that we have three columns in our spreadsheet that we will be using: ID, name, and city. So you will have to update it if your data has different columns, and more about this later. Okay. Now click on the deploy button and choose new deployment. Make sure that you follow this process carefully. Choose the type, web app, execute as me. This is important. And who has access? Anyone. So make sure that this is set the same way. This should show your Gmail. Okay. Now click on deploy. Now the first time you deploy this app, it will ask you to authorize this app, this web app. So click on this button, choose your Gmail, click on this advanced, and then here your project name, this one will be here. So click on it. And now scroll down and click on the allow button. Now this web app URL, we will be needing it in our MIT App Inventor code. So copy it and paste it in some text editor such as Notepad. Okay. Open up MIT App Inventor, go to project, start a new project. Let's call it This is an acronym for create, read, update and delete. Google Sheet, and make sure that the toolkit is default. Press OK. Now from layout, drag and drop a vertical arrangement onto the viewer. Make its height fill parent and width fill parent and rename it to main screen. From user interface, drag and drop a list view inside this main screen, and below it we need a horizontal arrangement for our buttons. For the horizontal arrangement, make a line horizontal, a line vertical, both center. The height is 15% and the width is fill parent. Now from user interface, drag and drop a button. Make its background color light blue and font bold, font size 20, and the width can be 30%. Shape is rounded, and I'm going to change the text to add. And I'm going to also rename the button to add button. Okay. Now select this button, duplicate it by pressing Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V on the keyboard for Windows, or Command+C, Command+V for Mac OS. Rename it to update button and change the text accordingly. Okay. Again select it, duplicate it, rename to delete button, and the text on it also says delete. Okay. Now select this main screen, the vertical arrangement, and make it invisible by turning off this visible checkbox, and drag and drop another vertical arrangement and rename it to add screen and make the height fill parent and the width fill parent. So we will be switching between the two screens, virtual screens, which are basically both layouts on the same screen one. Okay. In this screen, we need to add a horizontal arrangement. Okay. And make a line horizontal center, a line vertical center. The height is 15% and the width is fill parent. Inside it, we need a label. I'm going to just rename it to ID label and change the text to ID colon. And then I am also going to put a text box on the right of this label, and I am going to rename it to ID text. Now select this horizontal arrangement and duplicate it, and this one is now rename it to name label and change the text accordingly, and this is name txt, the text box. Okay, rename it, again duplicate it and rename this to city label. The text is city colon, and this text box, rename it to city text. Renaming is important. Now again duplicate this horizontal arrangement and just get rid of the components from inside it and just put a button. It should have the same properties as our add, update and delete buttons, so I'm just going to quickly do it. And I'm also going to rename this button to Save Button. Okay, with this 30%. Duplicate the button by selecting it and rename this to Cancel Button. And change the text accordingly. Okay. Select this add screen, and now we have to make it invisible, because when the app starts, the main screen should show. So make it invisible and then select the main screen and then make that visible. Okay. Now from user interface, drag and drop a notify. This is for showing messages to the user. And very important, from connectivity, drag and drop a web component. Okay. Our screen design is done, so let's quickly go to the block section. We need a few global variables. One is for our sheet data, which is an empty list. Right click, duplicate. This is our sheet name that we will be providing. So this is an empty text box. And then I'm going to type in my sheet name, which is customers. So I can go back and verify the name of my sheet is customers. Okay. We also need a status variable called action to differentiate between adding, updating, and deleting. Okay. So I'm just going to make it add by default. Okay. Another global variable that I need is for my web app URL. Okay, so web app URL, and this is basically the URL of this web app that I had copied to my notepad. So I'm just going to copy it from here, come back to my app, and then paste it here. So verify that it is correct. It starts from HTTPS and then ends at execc, execute. Okay. Get the screen once initialize event, and here first of all I am going to make sure that my add screen is invisible. So this is just an extra check, especially when we are using the companion app. So make it false and main screen should be visible. So make it true. Now click on this web1 and go towards the very end and get its set web1.url block, and this will be a join of three things. So go to text and get the join and click on the cogwheel to add another string to it. The first one is our web app URL, so hover over it and get that. The second one is a text block, so I can right click, duplicate and remove all text from it, and I need to type in something very carefully, and that is question mark sheet name is equal to. So be very careful when writing this. Okay, sheet name is equal to, and what is the sheet name? If I hover over my sheet name global variable, I can get the get block for it and provide that. Okay, and now in the end just call web1's get procedure. Okay, now this call will trigger web1's got text event. Okay, get a local variable, this one, and make this response DICT, dictionary in short, and this will be a decoded dictionary, and we will decode this response content that is in JSON. So if I click on web1, I have this JSON text decode with dictionaries, and I provided the response content. because we have just called get here. So if I go back to my web app, so this is the JSON that is being returned and we are decoding it inside a dictionary. The dictionary will have key value pairs. For example, against the status key, we might have error or we might have success. And against the key action, we will have read. Okay. I need to check if the action is read. Okay. Because in the case of update, deletion or adding, the action will be different. Okay. And we need to treat it differently in our code. So I am going to check using a control if then else block that using a logic equal to block if my action is read. And how can I get the value against the key action? By going to dictionaries and getting the get value for key block, and here the key is right click duplicate, the key is action, and we have to look inside which dictionary? Decoded dictionary. So hover over it and get the getter for it. So if this is read, then we will populate our list view and do the needful things. In the other case, we might have the add or update or delete scenarios. So more about this later, but let's do the reading part first. So if it is read, we need to go through our data. So how can we do that? We go to control and get the for each item in list block, and here the list is which list? If I go back to my MIT App Inventor script, so this is the list of values inside a sheet against the key data. Okay, so right click, duplicate this get value for key and just change this to data. And this should be a create empty list block and not a text block. Now each item is a list, but we have to show it in our list view. So we are going to add a joined long text composed of all the cell data to our sheet data. So if I go to lists and get this add item to list block, and here the list is my global sheet data. So I can right click and choose here sheet data, and what am I going to add? I'm going to add a join. So if I go to text, I get join, and this is a join of multiple items. So it will have 5 slots in it. So click on cogwheel and add 3 more. Okay, and what's the first one? We have to read from our list. So select this one, and here the list is our items, because this is one row from our sheet. Okay, and the index is 1, which means the first column in our sheet. Sorry, this is the wrong place here. Okay, so get item 1, and what is here? I can actually use this text block, and this is space dash space. Okay, right click duplicate, this is for the second column. 2, right click duplicate, right click duplicate, and this is 3. Okay, each item here is actually a list with 3 things in it. The data of the row. The first row will have 3 values in it: ID, name, city. The second item or row will have 3 things in it: 1, Harry, and London. So we have to get them at their indexes. So ID is at index 1, name is at index 2, and city is at index 3. Okay? After doing this, after we have read this data, remember that we have one extra row, that is this row, with the column titles. We need to remove it, okay? First of all, we need to check if our sheet data has something. It should have at least one row that is the column titles in it. Even if there's no data in the sheet, the columns should be there, the titles. Okay, so we have to check using the control if block and do it after the for loop, and go to logic, get the not block, and go to lists, get the is list empty block, and the list is our sheet data that we just filled. And if it is not empty, then we are going to remove the column titles from it. So how can we do that? Go to lists and get the remove list item block. The list is the sheet data and the index is 1. This will be the column titles. The reason why we are checking whether the list is not empty is because in case of some error from the web app, there will be absolutely no data in the sheet data, and then we will be doing a removal on it and you will get an error. So just check before removing the column titles. And then set our list view elements. Make sure it is inside that if block, set it to sheet data. Okay, now this else will take care of the updating and adding and deleting part, but at the end of this if else block, I need to add another if block, and that is for showing any error or messages to the user. Okay, so if I look at it, so got text, if then else, and then after the if then else block, I've added an if then block, and here I am going to check if my message is not equal to not found. Okay, so this is important. So go to logic and get the equal to block and get not equal to, and then come here and duplicate this bit, the get value for key part, and I'm going to change this to message, and I am going to check if it is not equal to not found. Okay, so what will happen here is that we are going to check if the decoded response content that we decoded inside a dictionary, it has a value against the key message. If it doesn't have a value for key message, then it will be made not found, and then it will be then equal to not found, and then we will not go inside here. But if there's some value for the key message in response dictionary, then we want to show it to the user using notifier. So go to notifier and call notify.showAlert, and then right click, duplicate, and then just show the message. Okay, try the app now and it should show you the sample data from our Google Sheet, this one, and I will just quickly show it to you right now in front of you. I click on companion. So as you can see that my data is showing, and if I change this sheet name to something else, for example products, and I refresh the companion screen, and it has given me the error of sheet not found. So we are done with the first part of the tutorial that included setting up Google Sheet, making the web app, MIT App Inventor's app screen design, and coding the reading sheet data part. I will cover adding, updating, and deleting in the final part of the tutorial. I hope you liked this tutorial. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel so that you don't miss the second part, the final part, and also the other great projects that I've planned for you. Thank you for watching. Have a good day and goodbye.